everyone, Jeff here from Films at Home. Thanks for coming back to the channel. I wanted to make a quick video to talk about some news that just came out regarding Sony and their PlayStation 5. Of course, if you pay attention at all to the internet or to the home theater gaming world, you know that Sony's PlayStation 5 announcement has been delayed because of the pandemic. They delayed it because of protests and not wanting to dominate the conversation. And finally, just yesterday, as I'm making this video, they finally released some specs and some designs and gave us some information on what that console is going to look like. So we're going to talk about that and the impact it has on physical media, 4K physical media, and home theater, and how it sort of stacks up against what we've already seen from the Xbox next-gen console. Alright guys, so like I said, this will be quick because we don't know a whole lot about the PlayStation 5 yet. But a couple of the major points that came out of the release yesterday, major point number one is that there are two versions of this console. And so this was not the best news for 4K and physical media fans, because there is a physical version that has a disc drive, and then there is a digital only version. And we've seen the Xbox do this a little bit, and you know, the PlayStation has always had a disc drive, but now they do have a digital only version. Now it's still available with a 4K disc player and for 4K gaming and, you know, gaming on discs. But I was really hoping that every PlayStation 5 would have the player, because it would sort of force one of these players into every home. And we're talking, you know, hundreds of millions of PlayStation 5s that have been sold. It puts a 4K player in everybody's houses, and now they may have more interest in 4K movies and buying physical media. Unfortunately, with the digital edition, you're probably going to see a lot of people opt for that, because chances are that's going to be cheaper, likely by $100. Based on what I've seen and some leaks that popped up on Amazon and just pricing based on other consoles in the past, the physical edition with the disc drive will probably be $100 more. And if I had to guess, that one will probably be listed at $599 at release, whereas the digital only version will release at $499. Now this is speculation, but there was a listing on Amazon for $599 in the UK, British pounds, and so I would assume they're going to stick to that pricing. They claim it was a mistake, but usually when leaks go out like that, it's for a reason. Amazon has a heads up, and so that was the physical edition for $599. They usually do the same price in pounds and US dollars, and so I think it's fair to assume you're paying $600 for the PlayStation 5 with the disc drive, and probably only $500 for the digital edition.
Show me the money! Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money!
So that was a little bit of unfortunate news, because I was really hoping that this would drive sales and basically do what the PlayStation 3 did for Blu-ray, where you put a Blu-ray player into everybody's homes, and that's not going to be the case. Now on the specs for this, it actually looks like a really nice console. It has a solid state drive, it has some really nice AMD processor chips, and there should be no issues like we sometimes see, and I know people have commented on this, with cheaper 4K players or even the Xbox that's out right now, the two versions that can play 4K discs. You get skipping, you get freezing, and it almost feels like the processor and what's involved inside the console just isn't up to speed for a 4K disc, and it sounds like here we're not going to have that issue. So it was nice to see some really strong specs and, you know, some strong solid state drive. If you do download digital movies, or you want to watch digital copies and you've downloaded them to your PlayStation, those should download quickly and boot up quickly. So that's all really good stuff, and it's great for gaming. Things will speed up, your update downloads will download much faster. So there's lots of gaming implications there, but I do think it should improve the performance of the player itself, because this thing's a powerhouse. Now, the announcement did say that the PlayStation 5 is going to support 8K gaming, and so that will probably drive more sales of like 8K monitors or 8K TVs. Now I've talked about how I think 8K is sort of unnecessary. In fact, I think it's completely unnecessary, and I don't think that 99.9% of people aren't going to see a difference, especially on a 55 or 65 or even 80-inch screen, between 8K and 4K. If you're talking about a 200-inch projector, you might get a little benefit there, but really for the majority of people, there's no difference. But it's interesting to see them supporting it, because that means that if 8K media does become a thing and does become more widespread, which I do think is still very rare, that the PlayStation 5 should be able to handle it because it can do 8K gaming, although they did say that they don't expect any games to really be pumping out 8K content anytime soon. Now, it also supports 4K gaming at 120 Hz, so that's a good sign. It's going to be able to handle all your 4K discs and your 4K media very well, because your 4K media is not at 120 Hz. Your 4K media is usually at, movies are usually at 24 frames per second refresh rate, and even like Gemini Man was only at 60. So 120 Hz is a very high refresh rate, great for gaming, doesn't have an impact for movies so much. But one thing that was interesting is that Sony PlayStation 5 does not support Dolby Atmos for gaming. And the Xbox Next Gen console does support Dolby Atmos for gaming, and currently supports Dolby Atmos on their current version. So the fact that Sony is not supporting Dolby Atmos for gaming makes me a little concerned. What they're doing instead is something called 3D audio, and they're sort of almost creating their own Atmos, their own object-based surround, because they want everyone to have the same experience. They were talking in the release, you know, whether you have a surround sound system with 10 speakers, a set of headphones, or a sound bar, we want you to have the same 3D immersive audio experience. Now, that doesn't mean they won't support Dolby Atmos audio for movies. I think they'd be really foolish not to, but it does point towards, there is no mention of it. I will say that. There's no mention of Dolby Atmos. They mention 4K, they mention HDR. There's no specifics on Dolby Vision HDR or HDR10 Plus yet. We can assume that they may have those, or maybe add-ons for each of them depending on your display, but no mention at all of Dolby Atmos and the fact they're pushing this 3D audio. Now, I don't know how well that will play with Atmos. Maybe they are interconnected. Maybe Atmos can convert into whatever 3D audio Sony is doing. But there's a big question mark there on what we're going to get if you use this as your main 4K player, which I do think a lot of people are going to do. So these are things to keep an eye on as we learn more about this, and as you go to make a purchase decision on whether, you know, for your next gen console, you're going Xbox or PlayStation. One other interesting note was that there is a media remote that's going to be available as an accessory. I believe the last time we had one of those was on the PlayStation 3. It had a media remote, which was big because of the Blu-ray player, but now on the PlayStation 5 that is an optional add-on, although I personally would recommend going for a universal remote. Something from Logitech, the Harmony series is really good, or just simply using your PlayStation controller. I don't think you need to shell out the money for the extra media remote, but if it is going to be your primary media console, the media remote may be a good idea, or a universal remote like I mentioned. But that is going to be available, which is interesting to hear because they're clearly envisioning this as an all-in-one entertainment system more than just a gaming console, with the inclusion of this remote and, you know, things like 3D audio and you know, possibly 8K. There's a lot going on here that kind of speaks to this as more than just gaming. It's sort of it's going to be your central driving force of your entertainment system is what they're hoping for. So that's what we know so far. You know, personally, the news about the digital edition sucks. I don't love that, but I do still think that a lot of people have slower internet speeds, and we know how large games are and how long they can take to download, and I think disc sales of games are still strong, and so I think you'll still see people buy it with the disc drive. And the added benefit is, for only $100 extra, you're probably getting a very good up-to-date 4K player. Now that's to be seen. We need to test that out and see what it does. I'm hoping that maybe I can get my hands on one early so I can test it as a player. But if you're only paying an extra $100, that is far cheaper than even the lower end 4K players out there, and that makes it a really enticing option, especially as more people move into 4K TVs and discover 4K movies as stuff moves off of Netflix and Disney Plus removes things and HBO Max and all the streaming. 4K players have seen an upsurge in sales, and so maybe the PlayStation 5 will help drive that as well. I wish that was the only option, but I do understand why they do the digital edition, because it does get them a cheaper price point, gets it into more homes, and a lot of people simply just don't have an interest in discs, and I fully understand that. So that's what I know about the PlayStation 5. I just want to talk about that release. It was really big news in the gaming world, but it's also big news in the entertainment world and home theater world, so wanted to talk about it, make sure I got my thoughts out there on it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. tried to keep this as short as I could and didn't want to speculate too much because we don't have full information yet. As I learn more, I will update with future videos, but we'll see what happens there. But again, thank you for watching. Make sure you check out all my links down below. Follow me on Instagram. You can donate to my channel and check out my merchandise. And just as always, thank you for your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd recommend it. And just have a great weekend, guys. I'm trying to pump out more videos as much as I can, so hopefully you're enjoying that. And I'll talk to you guys soon.